Here comes. Are we live?
We're live.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Everybody who's here, and everybody who's at home. I've got a slightly husky voice this morning, left over from a cold a couple of weeks ago, so the singing might croak a bit, but we'll see how it goes. If you looked at the KLS Facebook group, I put what I called a photo, though of course it was a painting, of a representation of the tabernacle that the Israelites built in the desert, because this morning we're going to read the very end of the book of Exodus, where they finished building the tabernacle, and based on the descriptions in the Torah, artists have done some paintings of what they think it looked like. So if you're at home with the internet and you haven't seen that on Facebook, you can just look up either tabernacle or Mishkan, M-I-S-H-K-A-N, image, and you'll get a picture. And if you're here in the sanctuary, you can't do that, but you can always do it when you go home. Quite interesting. Anyway, we're going to start on page 117, service number 3, with Ma Tovu. So off we go. I'm going to give myself a note so I don't croak. 117. Ma Tovu Ohalecha Yaakov Meshkanotecha Yisrael Ma Tovu Ohalecha Yaakov Meshkanotecha Yisrael. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. Through your great love, O God, I enter your house. With awe, I worship in your sanctuary. Eternal God, I love the house where your glory dwells. Humbly, I worship before my God and Maker. May my prayer be acceptable to you, eternal God. In your great kindness, answer me with your saving truth. Says the congregation will sit. Conveniently, you're all sitting already. Let's read together. We thank you, O God, for this new day, for morning sun and evening star, for flowering of tree and flowing of tide, for life-giving rains and cooling breezes, for the changing seasons, for the cycle of growth and decay, of life and death. We awake and behold, new day. O God, renew us unto life. Teach us to recognize your presence in creation. Grateful for your gifts, we may dedicate all our powers to your service. And we're on page 118. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for eyes to see. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for clothes to wear. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for the joy of freedom. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for the power to rise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for providing for all our needs. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for daily renewing our strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, for the blessing of sleep and the privilege of waking to a new day. So now we are on page 119. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam baruch hu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamchulal b'fi amo, meshubah umfo'ah bilshon chasidim v'avodav, b'shvachot uvizmirot, nagadlecha v'namlichacha malkeinu yachid hei ha'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, melech mehulal b'tishbachot. With the coming of day and night, I will enter the covenant of God, and when evening and morning depart, I will recite God's decrees. God Most High, you are my righteousness. You teach me goodness. You are the fountain of knowledge, the dwelling place of holiness, and the summit of glory. Eternal might and majesty are yours. I will choose whatever you teach me, gladly accepting your judgments. As soon as I move my hands and feet, I will praise your name. When I go out and when I come in, when I lie down and when I rise up. When I rest on my bed, I will sing your praise, and in the company of my friends, I will praise you with the words of my mouth. So now we're going to sing Mizmor Shir, which is there on the bottom of page 120, and we're going to start on a C. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Tov Lehodot L'Adonai, Ulazameh L'Shimcha Elyon, Ulazameh L'Shimcha Elyon, Lehagid Baboker Chastecha, Ve'emunatcha Balelot, Alei Asur Va'alei Navel, Alei Higayon Bechinot. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Tov Lehodot L'Adonai, Ulazameh L'Shimcha Elyon, Ulazameh L'Shimcha Elyon. Ki simchtani Adonai b'volecha, b'maaseh yadecha aranein, ma gadlu maaseh Adonai, me'od amku machshavotcha. Mizmor Shir b'Yom HaShabbat, Tov Lehodot L'Adonai, Ulazameh L'Shimcha Elyon, Ulazameh L'Shimcha Elyon. The righteous shall flourish like the palm, grow tall like the cedar of Lebanon. Planted in the house of the Eternal One, they shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall still bear fruit in old age. They shall ever be fresh and green, proclaiming that God is just, my rock in whom there is no flaw. Please stand if you're able. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad, Malkeinu Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol VaHaKadosh, Bashamayim Uva'aretz. Ki lecha na'eh, Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu, Shir u'shvacha, Halel v'zimra, Barachot v'hodaot, Me'ata v'ad olam, Baruch atah Adonai, Habocher b'shirei zimra. So now we're going to turn to page 135, and yeah. La 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 Please feel free to sit down, and we'll resume in the middle of page 136, and please join me. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching, make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. Praise you, O God. In love you have called your people Israel to serve you. You may stand or sit as you like for the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal One is our God, the Eternal God is one. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol levavecha, u'v'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol ma'adecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha v'tibarat bam. V'shiftecha b'veitecha, u'v'lechtecha v'aderech, u'v'shachbecha, u'v'kumecha. V'ksharatam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu le'totafot bein einecha, u'chetaftam al mezuzot beitecha, u'visharecha. You may sit. Le'man tizkaru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, V'tem kadoshim le'Elohechem, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Asher hotzoti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, Lihyot lachem le'Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem. And you may read with me. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words, now and forever. True it is, Eternal One, that you are our sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you this song. Mi chamocha be'elin Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot oseh v'elem. A new song the redeemed sang to your name at the shore of the sea. With one accord they gave thanks and proclaimed your sovereignty. Adonai Imlo Leolam Vaed. Tzoi Yisrael, Kuma Bezrat Yisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai, Tzavaot Shamo, Kadosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, God Yisrael, God Yisrael, Yisrael. We're now on the Amidah, which is at the top of page 140. And please stand if you're able. Adonai sefatai tiftach uvi hagita hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem Lama'an Shemo Ba'ahaba Melech Ozer Mashiach Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Machayei Meitim Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hageshem Mazriach Hashemesh Umorid Hatal. Machayim b'chesed, Machayim meitim b'rachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayim emunato, Lishenei havo, Michamocha ba'al kavorot, Umito melech, Melech mimit, Umachayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman atah lahachayot meitim, Baruch atah Adonai, Machayei hameitim. Nakadesh et shimcha ba'olam, kashem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, kakatuv al yad neviyecha. Kadosh, 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 Adonai tzavot, melech al haaretz kavodo. Kavod malei olam. Baruch kavod Adonai Mimkomcha malkeinu tofea v'timloch aleinu ki machakim anachnu lach. Yimloch Adonai leolam Elohai Tzidon ledovato. Hallelujah. Gonna try and sing. Latovato nagid godlecha ulenetzach netzachim kedushatcha na'akdish v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush le'olam va'ed Baruch atah ha'el hakadosh hakadosh. Please sit down. Great, at least in the sanctuary we've got some people without croaky voices. Please sit down. Although last week I I had the pleasure of going to my childhood shul where I grew up from the age of like 0 to 22 or something like that, because my famous aunt, who you all know about, who was 102 a couple of weeks ago, wanted to hold a kiddush in her shul, which she's belonged to since she was age 6. And so I went there. But the singing's only got worse there, so over the years. So I was thinking, oh gosh, I can't hold a tune at all. So there we are. Anyway, it was a lovely occasion. So we're at the bottom of page 142. That reminded me, because it says ancestors. You inspired our ancestors to hallow this day for your service. When upon its coming we pause to contemplate our life, we learn anew that we do not live by bread alone, but also by the spiritual nourishment we receive when we open ourselves to your influence. We thank you for the Sabbath day and for the opportunity it offers to enhance the quality of our lives. We thank you for its joy and for its peace. May our worship help us to take into our hearts its message of holiness and consecrate all our days by devotion to what is true, beautiful, and good. Yismechu b'malchutcha, Yismechu b'malchutcha, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei oneg, Hamekadshei Shavi'i, Hamekadshei Shavi'i, Kulam Yisbohu v'yitangu mituvecha, v'hashvi'i, Ratzita bo v'kidashto, Chemdat yamim, Chemdat yamim, Oto karata, Zecher l'maseh v'reishit. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu, Ratzei v'mnuchatenu, Kadshenu b'mitzvotecha, V'tein chelkenu b'toratecha, Sab'enu mituvecha, V'samchenu b'shuatecha, Patach elebeinu la'ovtecha ba'emet, V'chanchelenu Adonai Eloheinu, V'hava uvratzon Shabbat kodshecha, V'yanuchu va Yisrael makadshei shemecha, Baruch atah Adonai, Makadesh HaShabbat. And we're at the top of page 144. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, Ba'amcha Yisrael, U'tefilatam ba'ahava tekabel, U'tehil ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael, Amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Sha'otecha levatecha, V'yir'ah na'avod. Let's all read together. We give thanks that you, Eternal One, are our God, as you are the God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our life, the power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives, which are in your hand, for our souls, which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, to whom our thanks are due. What shall we sing for Sim Shalom? I like this one. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha, Chen v'chesed v'rachamim, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Amecha. Repeat. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha, Chen v'chesed v'rachamim, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Amecha. Barcheinu Avinu Avinu, כולנו כאחד כאחד, באור פניך בניך, באור פניך. ברכנו אבינו אבינו, כולנו כאחד כאחד, כולנו כאחד כאחד, באור פניך. Baruch atah Adonai, osei hashalom. Okay, let's take some moments for silent prayer. Osei shalom b'mroma, Yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol b'nei Adam. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol b'nei Adam. Okay, now we're going to turn to page 490 for the, oh no.
Page number, please.
Yeah, 490. 490. I'm going to come over this side for a change. Could we have two ark openers? I'm going to actually read from the Chumash and not from the scroll, but it'd be nice to open the ark. Would anybody like to come and open the ark? Philip and Vince. Lovely. Thank you. So we can have the ark open. Waiting for Philip to reappear with it. Okay, so we're on page 490. Assemble the people, men, women and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear and learn to revere the Eternal One your God, and observe faithfully all the precepts of this Torah. And let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere the Eternal One, your God. B'ha'eneinu b'toratecha v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha v'yached lavaveinu b'yachava u'lira et shemecha. Well, but you can leave it open while I do the Torah reading, and then you could come and close it. So you can go and sit down. It's a kind of mixed ritual which I've just invented. So feel free to sit down. So I said we're going to read the very, very end of the book of Exodus, and as I said at the beginning, it's about the completion of the task which the Israelites had in the desert to build a tabernacle, which or mishkan, which was a portable sanctuary. I mean, not really portable like this. It's more portable like you could collapse it and carry it around. A bit more. It was a bit more elaborate than that, and actually, this huge long description of how it's got to be built and exactly what's got to be in it and where. And we're going to come in just at the end of it, and then have a little chat afterwards about what's going on. So I'm just going to do the Torah blessings, and I'm going to read a bit of the Torah portion in Hebrew, and then the translation. If anybody's following, which you may or may not be following, it's going to be Exodus chapter 40, from verse 24 until the end, which is 38. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach, Baruch Adonai hamavorach, Baruch Adonai hamavorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Vayasem, okay, yes. Vayasem at menorah, the candelabra, ba'ochel moed nochach hashulchan al yerech hamishkan nekba. Vaya'al hanerot lifnei Adonai ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe. By the way, this phrase, ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe, just as God had commanded Moses, you'll hear this is going to be repeated again and again. V'yasem et misbach hazahav ba'ohel moed livnei haparochet. V'yakter alav katoret samim ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe. V'yasem at masach hepetach lamishkan. V'et misbach ha'olah sam petach mishkan ohel moed. V'ya'al alav et ha'olah ve'et ha'mincha ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe. V'yasem et ha'kiyor ben ohel moed uven ha'mizbeach v'yeten shama mayim l'rachtzah. V'rachatzu mimenu Moshe v'Aharon v'anav et ha'yadehem ve'et raglehem. B'vo'am el ohel moed uvkarbatam el hamizbeach yirchatzu ka'asher tziva Adonai et Moshe. V'yakem et hechatzer saviv lamishkan v'lamizbeach v'yetein et masach sha'ah hechatzer v'yachal Moshe et hamlacha. V'cham he'enan et ohel moed, uchavod Adonai malei et hamishkan, v'lo yachol Moshe lavo el ohel moed, ki shachan alav he'enan uchavod Adonai malei et hamishkan, uv'hei alot he'enan me'al hamishkan yisu b'nei Yisrael b'chol masehem, v'im lo ya'ale he'enan v'lo yisu ad yom ha'eloto. Ki anan Adonai al hamishkan yomam, v'esh tehiyeh laila, bol einei kol Beit Yisrael b'chol masehem. Let's find it. Okay, so this is, they say, right at the end of a whole load of instructions. And this is Moses. He placed the lampstand, or menorah, as it says in that Hebrew, in the tent of meeting, opposite the table, on the south side of the tabernacle. And he set up the lamps before God, as God had commanded him. He placed the golden altar in the tent of meeting, in front of the veil, and on it he burned fragrant incense, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He put up the curtain at the entrance of the tabernacle. He placed the altar of burnt offerings in front of the entrance of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting, and offered burnt offerings and meal offerings on it, as God had commanded Moses. He placed the wash basin between the tent of meeting and the altar, and put water in it for washing. Moses and Aaron and his sons used to wash their hands and feet there, for they washed themselves whenever they went into the tent of meeting or approached the altar, as God had commanded Moses. He set up the court around the tabernacle and the altar, and hung the curtain at the entrance of the court. Thus Moses finished all the work. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of God filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter the tent of meeting, because the cloud settled down upon it, and the glory of God filled the tabernacle. Whenever the cloud was lifted from the tabernacle, the Israelites could set out on their journey. But if the cloud did not lift, they would not set out. Only when it lifted did they go forward. In the daytime, the cloud of God was upon the tabernacle, and fire was in it by night. It was seen by all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys. And that's the end of the book of Exodus. And what do we say at the end of a book of the Torah? We say, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek, meaning strength, strength, and we should all be strong together. So I'm just going to do the bracha afterwards, and then I'm going to, and then probably we'll close the ark, won't we? And then I'll say something about the Torah reading, yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Okay. Closers, please come and close the ark. So, what was going on there? So there's kind of two, fabulous, thank you. There's kind of two topics that are interesting to talk about in that little portion. Why is there this immense detail of what the Mishkan, how it was to be constructed and what was going to go where? And as I say, if you go on the internet, you can find some photos from the year minus something. They're not really photos, but you'll see some artists' impressions. So why is there all that instructions? So that's one interesting topic. And another interesting topic is the cloud at the end. What's the cloud all about? And so, as you know, rabbis over many, many generations have given lots of thought to everything that's in the Torah. So there's a few kind of explanations, and and you can take them all or you can take some of them. So first of all, what's all the detail about? Because it goes on for chapters, actually, in several portions. As if you've been here the last few weeks, you'll have heard. So first of all, we have to remember that before the Israelites made the Mishkan, the tabernacle, they made something else. What else did they make when they were out there in the desert? They made the golden calf, exactly. So they made something, they got together and they made something they wanted that they shouldn't have made. And then they've been given an opportunity to make something holy instead of making something profane. It's an opportunity for them to do the right thing and to make it together as a community so that they would feel the ownership of what they were making, which is very important, as we know, to do things together as a community. And just to digress slightly from Exodus, I was talking to Renee the other day about, I don't know if you know, Council have got plans of redecorating this room a little bit. And I said to Renee, it would be really nice to do something all together, like lots of us did the Mosaic in 2009, because we've got a lot of people who weren't members who weren't here in 2009 when we did that. And there were 120 people who worked on that. And the fact that it was a community project, it was kind of nice, and people still go past it and say, I did that bit and I did that bit. And I said, we need to have something that maybe people contribute to in the decor. So he's having a think about that. Anyway, back to Exodus. The other thing that's really interesting is that the language used in the whole description of how to build the tabernacle is very similar to the language used at the beginning of Genesis for the creation story. So people who've analysed the text have found lots of similar words, verbs, adjectives, the same word repeated the same number of times. So it's clear that there's meant to be a link between the creation of the world and the creation of the sanctuary, of the tabernacle. So, for instance, there was a bit in the bit that I read that said Moses completed the work, and we get the same phrase when God completed the creation. So the idea that's put forward is that God created the world for us, and humans then created a space for God in that tabernacle that they were going to carry around. And it's not just a physical space, because we have to make space in our week for God. So the same as there is a physical space, in the creation story, there were 6 days that God worked and the day that God rested. And again, the idea is that we've been given 6 days to work and create, and 1 day where we make space for God. And I'm quite fond of reading what the late Lord Sachs said about things. And he also said that it's also a lesson to us to make space not just for God, but for each other, to make space for our partners, our children, our colleagues, our staff, not just to make time for them, but to give them opportunities to flourish and create, like the Israelites in the desert were given the opportunity to make something new, to make the tabernacle. We shouldn't just be doing everything ourselves all the time. So that's some thoughts about why there's all the instructions, because they're making something holy, and in a way they're making up for what happens with the golden calf. So then we get on to the cloud. What's the cloud all about? Well, weather. I mean, if you remember with pre our religion, the Romans and all those, they had gods of thunder and so on and so forth, and gods of the sun. So weather phenomena were kind of part of religions back in ancient times. But also the cloud, the fact that God really appears only in a cloud, means that we can't know what God looks like. So we can't kind of make images of God, because God's always in a cloud. We don't actually know. I know people draw things that they think are God, but we don't actually know what God looked like because there's a cloud. And the cloud has appeared previously in the book of Exodus. When the Israelites left Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, they were guided by the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. But then tradition has it that the cloud disappeared from them when they made the golden calf. It was removed and only reappears when this building of the tabernacle was complete. So it's a kind of forgiveness and a reconciliation. And if you remember right at the end there, it was talking about when the cloud was going to appear on their journeys, because they haven't finished journeying. But the idea is that with the cloud guiding them, God and the people of Israel can now set out together on their journeys as partners in creation. So that's what I'm going to say about the Torah portion. And I'm now going to read the Haftarah, which I'm only going to read that in English. But as you probably know, the Haftarah is another reading that we have that's not from the Torah, not from the 5 books of Moses, but from somewhere later in the Old Testament. And usually it's meant to be on a kind of similar theme. And it said, I'm not sure if anybody, Janet might know, I'm not sure if anybody really knows if this is legend or truth, that's because when the Romans banned the studying of Torah, the rabbis found similar passages from other books that they could study instead. And then afterwards we've continued to read both. So it's going to be from the first book of Kings. And in this case, the parallel between them is not obscure at all. You'll be quite interested to hear how parallel it is, because it's about Solomon building the Temple of Solomon, which obviously came much, much later. So now we need the brachot for the Haftarah, which is on page 492. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzav v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uvinvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. When all the work King Solomon had done for the temple of the Lord, it says in this translation, was finished, he brought in the things his father David had dedicated, the silver and gold and the furnishings, and he placed them in the treasuries of the temple. Then King Solomon summoned into his presence at Jerusalem the elders of Israel, all the heads of the tribes and the chiefs of the Israelite families, to bring up the ark of the Lord's covenant from Zion, the city of David. All the Israelites came together to King Solomon at the time of the festival in the 7th month. When all the elders of Israel had arrived, the priests took up the ark, and they brought up the ark and the tent of meeting and all the sacred furnishings in it. The priests and the Levites carried them up, and King Solomon and the entire assembly of Israel that had gathered about him were before the ark, sacrificing so many sheep and cattle that they could not be recorded or counted. The priests then brought the ark of the covenant to its place in the inner sanctuary of the temple, the most holy place, and put it beneath the wings of the cherubim. The cherubim spread their wings over the place of the ark and overshadowed the ark and its carrying poles. These poles were so long that their ends could be seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary, but not from outside the holy place, and they are still there today. There was nothing in the ark except the 2 stone tablets that Moses had placed in it at Horeb, where God made a covenant with the Israelites after they came out of Egypt. When the priests withdrew from the holy place, the cloud filled the temple, and the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of God filled his temple. Then Solomon said, "The Lord has said that he would dwell in a dark cloud. I have indeed built a magnificent temple for you, a place for you to dwell forever. While the whole assembly of Israel was standing there, the king turned around and blessed them. So, instead of a spot the difference puzzle, spot the similarities. What did you notice there that was similar, that was in the Torah reading? Well, lots of detail about what's going to go where, the gold and the silver, and what was going to be placed where. And then, of course, the cloud filling the temple at the end of it. So this was, of course, much, much later. But the Solomon's temple was based on the temporary tabernacle. This was to be a permanent temple. And did I just read out a line which says, the poles were so long, blah, 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 and they are still there today. Are they still there today? No. Solomon's temple was, of course, destroyed by the Romans, and so it's quite interesting that it says it's still there today, but maybe the concept is still there today.
It might have been still there when things were sort of written down.
Yeah, it might have been there when things were written down.
Well, not, or like fragments of older scrolls that got put together. So
yeah.
It might have.
Yeah. So there we are. So that's the Haftarah. So now I'm just going to do the bracha after the Haftarah.
Because we're here today, also the continuation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Because after the temples, well, there were two, because the temple was rebuilt then, wasn't it? And then it was destroyed again. And then the synagogue indeed took the place of the temple. Yeah. So yeah.
So Rushit Road was just a continuation.
Yeah. Especially Rushit Road, yeah. Yeah, no, good point, yeah. And it's still, in the sense of, it's still our space for God. Okay, so we're at the bottom of page 492. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Tzu kol ha'olamim, tzaddik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer va'oseh, hamdabareh u'makayem, shechol davarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah v'al ha'vodah, v'al hanvi'i v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu, Likdusha v'limnucha, lachavod ultifaret, al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, u'mavarachim otach, yitbarach shemacha b'fi kol chai, tamid leolam va'ed, baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. Please stand for the remaining these prayers at the bottom of page 493. Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask your blessing for our sovereign King, King Charles, and the royal family, for those who govern our country and all who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that it may be a force for righteousness and peace in the life of humanity. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all our brothers and sisters of the house of Israel who enter synagogues to pray and to give aid to those in need. May the Holy One, to whom all praise is due, hear their prayers and help them to fulfill their aspirations for good. Let's read together. Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven for the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbours, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision that out of Zion shall go forth Torah and the word of God from Jerusalem. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai ki nisgav shemo levado. Hodu al eretz v'shamayim v'yarem keren le'omo tehila lecha chasida livnei Yisrael al krovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. So this psalm, Psalm 24, is meant for if the scrolls are being processed, but it will be nice to read it in English anyway for a change. The earth is God's and all its fullness, the world and all who dwell in it. For God has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods. Who may ascend the mountain of the Eternal One? Who may stand in God's holy place? Those who have clean hands and pure hearts, who do not speak with malice and do not swear deceitfully. They shall receive blessings from the Eternal One, justice from the God of their salvation. Such is the destiny of those who seek your presence, O God of Jacob. So Shaim Rashechem v'hinasu petrei olam v'yavo melech hakavod mihu zeh melech hakavod mihu zeh melech hakavod Adonai Tzavaot hu melech hakavod Selah. This is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel in time to come, says the Eternal One. I will put my teaching within them and engrave it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. No longer shall anyone need to teach a friend or a neighbour to know me, for they all shall know me, young and old alike. Hashivenu, Hashivenu, Adonai Elecha, V'nashuva, V'nashuva, Kadesh, Kadesh, Yabbeinu Kadgadam. Okay, I seem to be doing everything in a funny order this morning, but I think we're now on to the concluding prayers. So you may stay standing, and we're going to be on page 520. No, 519. Right. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen va'Amen. Let God be praised forever. Amen and Amen. Baruch Atah Adonai, Baruch Adonai Elohim, Elohei Yisrael, Osei Niflaot Levado, Uvaruch Shem Kavodo La'olam, V'yimale Kavodo et Kol Haaretz, Amen v'Amen. So now we'll turn over to page 520 and we'll do Helenu as we're used to doing it. Aleinu l'shapeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liyotzeh bereshit, asher sam chelkeinu le'ached et shemo, v'gor aleinu lahamlich malchuto, v'anachnu kore'im, u'mishtachafim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim v'Yosed Haaretz, U'moshav Yakaro b'Shamayim mima'al, U'shchinatu zo, b'gov hei meromim, Hu Eloheinu Ein Od, Emet Malkeinu Efes Ulato, Kakatuv B'Torato, V'yadata hayom v'hashevota el levavecha, Ki Adonai Hu ha'Elohim, B'shamayim mima'al, V'al ha'aretz mitachat ein od. Let's read together. Trusting in you, eternal God, we hope soon to behold the glory of your might, when false gods will vanish from our hearts and idolatry cease forever. Help us to perfect the world by bringing it under your unchallenged rule, when all will invoke your name, relinquish evil, and turn to you alone. May all who dwell on earth come to know that to you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you let them humble themselves, and to your glorious name let them give honour. Let all submit to your sovereign rule. May that time come soon and last forever. For ultimate sovereignty is yours, and to all eternity you will reign in glory, as it is written, the Eternal One shall reign forever. V'nemar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz, bayom ha'hu yeh Adonai echad, u'shamo echad. So we now come to the time where we remember those who have passed on, and we'll be remembering today Norman Crevice, who many of us remember and was the father of Stephanie Buganig and grandfather of Joshua, Morris Hornfeld, who is Beverly Shibe's dad, and I remember Beverly's parents used to visit here. Janice Rich, who was Sarah Alston's mum and also grandfather of Sarah's sons, Joshua and Sam. And sadly, Sarah's dad is very ill at the moment. And Jesse and Harold Levy, who were the parents of Norma Sheldon. So let's read on page 522. As we worship before you, O God, we think of those who once shared with us the joys and burdens of life and who are no longer in our midst. The sorrow of bereavement is softened by the bond of love which continues to unite us with our dear ones, and by our cherished memories of them, which we will always carry in our hearts. May all that was good in their lives remain with us as an influence for good. O God, grant consolation to those who are in sorrow, and light to those in darkness. Teach us at all times to put our trust in you and to praise your name. Were there any other names that people wanted to mention?
Sheila Angel.
Oh, Sheila Angel. Thank you, Mary.
Jacqueline's first one.
Oh, Jacqueline, was that your first? That was Michael's first wife. So for all those whom we've named and all those who we're thinking about, let's read the Kaddish together on page 524. Yit kadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach yiratei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yumechon, v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'gala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevorach le'olam le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitada v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kudusha b'rechu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Damira ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'al kol b'nei Adam. V'imru amen. So, please have a seat. Now, just going to see if there was anyone online who I should have greeted. Since we are... might not be that easy to do.
Sarah, Dylan, Anne.
Oh, you know who's there. Okay, so 3 people. That's Sarah Alston, yeah, and Anne.
Or from Wessex.
Oh, okay. So Shabbat shalom to those of you who are out there and those of you who are out there on channels where we can't see you. I don't know if there's any announcements you want to make, Craig? Craig is coming to make announcements. It was Craig's birthday yesterday. There's an announcement.
I suppose three main things coming up. The communal Seder. We're less than 3 weeks away, so please book for our wonderful communal events with lovely food as well, catered by Carolyn and Steve. Not to be missed. Sarah is online, so I shall mention Book Crashes, which I think is the 15th of April. And the book, Mary, do you know the book? Pass. Okay. You read all about it in the bulletin. And also, 1 week from today is Yom HaShoah, and we will be having a service here on in the evening with the choir and with words.
It's not 1 week today, isn't it? On Tuesday?
One month.
Oh, yeah, one
Sorry.
month today.
Thank you.
It's the 18th of April.
Just to make sure you're paying attention.
Yeah.
1 month.
It's Tuesday evening, the 18th of April. Yom HaShoah is like a Holocaust memorial in the Jewish religion, whereas the British Day, as we know, is the January the 27th, but the Jewish Day falls, on a Hebrew date, which this year is April the 18th. Yeah, good. Okay. So let's finish with Adon Olam on page 525. Anybody got a tune they feel like singing, or shall I just launch in?
I think assaulted is a good idea.
Sorry?
Assaulted, so some people sing one, two.
Oh, yeah, great.
We do that all anyway.
Yeah, okay. Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'et Nasa V'chefzo Kol Asay Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu Haya V'hu Oved V'hu Yeh B'tifara V'hu Echad V'ein Shein shelo lahavbira, beli reshit, beli tachlit, belo haos, bahamisra, vahu eli vachai goli, vatzuchev li ba'etzara, vahu nisi umanos li, manat kosi, bayom ekra, bayato avkidruchi, ba'eti sham ba'aira, ba'imruchi gaviyati, Adonai li, velo ira. Into your hand I place my soul. Asleep, awake, for you are near. And with my soul, my body too. You are my God, I shall not fear. Shabbat shalom, everybody, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for leading us, Sandra.
Are we offline? Well, Shabbat shalom again to everybody who's out there. Have a nice afternoon.
Well, there's still members of the noise, aren't there?
Somebody thought